Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Each week we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam.
Howdy.
And a man who once drove a Mustang convertible with Carlos Santana airbrushed on the side, Mr. Bob Leahy.
Hey, how's it going? It was actually Rob Thomas featuring Carlos Santana.
Fair enough. Well, we'd like to thank you all for joining us as we witness Chuck Norris gingerly dipping his toe into the conservationist pool. Today, we're going to recap and review Season 3, Episode 4, Mustangs, where Walker must save the last herd of wild Mustangs in Texas from some evil ranchers. But before we put on our butcher's aprons and jump into our Chevy SUV with a few machine guns and a chainsaw, join us as we pull up a stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Oh, hey guys, it's been a while.
I know, it's been 2 weeks. This is weird getting used to, man.
I could get used to it.
Yeah, it gives us more time to reflect.
Yeah, it's made me really appreciate the Walker I'm given.
Well, this week you can be extra appreciative because you've also been given an Epiphany Maine IPA. And this is by Foundation Brewing Company in Portland, Maine. According to the brewmasters, they indulged in their desire to create an IPA that personifies the vivid flavors that can be coaxed from the hop cone, painted on a canvas of soft malt that allows the flavors to shine through. Extensively hopped in the kettle and in the fermenter, we spared nothing in making this beer. Epiphany was designed to showcase the glorious flavor and aromatics of hops without any bitterness. Citrus, tropical fruit, and pine blend together to provide you with a sublimely juicy hop experience. You guys ready for this?
Wow.
It has not been described as one might describe a beer, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't envy the people writing these descriptions for beers. I mean, these guys were definitely having a hard time. They're like, well, I guess we'll talk about the fermenter.
Yeah, they either talk about the fermenter or like some weird wild strain of yeast.
Right.
I can't wait to see what they painted on that canvas of soft malt.
Okay, let's crack these things. A canvas of soft malt.
Yeah, I don't. Who talks like that, right? Let's taste this thing. It smells like orange juice.
Yeah, and it really isn't that bitter at all.
No, there's a little right up front, and then it just goes away.
I'm having an epiphany right here in my mouth.
Whew. All right. Well, with that out of the way,
now that we've had our epiphany here, maybe we can jump into a segment I'm going to call the News Archive. This is something I kind of stumbled upon a few weeks ago, and we have talked about Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman and Walker, Texas Ranger coming together in a few really weird places. I think they were on the same network.
Yeah, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman was on CBS as well, and it aired in the 8 to 9 o'clock time slot.
But this article is Walker, Texas Ranger Fights Criticism, and this is from 1994, and it was in Entertainment Weekly. It says, Walker, Texas Ranger Fights Criticism. Chuck Norris talks about the show's struggle to appeal to women.
It seems like Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman ran from January 1st, 1993 to 1998. So I don't know when Walker piloted, but it was in 1993 for sure. So, you know, these two shows came out right around the same time.
Apparently, if you read into it, they're trying to appeal to women because, I mean, women don't like karate kicks, they like love scenes, apparently, is what I'm going to pull from this. And here's a quote from Chuck Norris. Our weakness is young women, which is the Dr. Quinn audience. As the show runs, we'll get into episodes that deal with situations that young women would like to see, like this one here. Norris says, relaxing between smooches.
Well, you know, I think that it's interesting that we learned what Chuck Norris really sees as his weakness, which is young women.
Yeah, or at least as far as the success of Walker, Texas Ranger.
I'm not going to read it that way. I'm going to read that Walker is weak to young women. We found the weakness.
The epiphany for me here is that Walker, Texas Ranger was calculating to capture the audience of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman when they were creating this show. Right?
By season 3, yeah.
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 So, interesting article. We'll pop it up on the episode page. Yeah, up next, we've got a new segment here. I'm going to call this our corrections segment. And this edition is bylined, hindsight may be 2020, but we are still going to hell. Look, we're not always perfect on the show, and we try to do our homework, but we make mistakes. So let's jump into this. Our first mistake was pointed out to us by professional spell checker Elisa. So I posted up our episode on Twitter this week. I said, this week we celebrate our 1-year anniversary by poring over the revelations from Wizard World's recent Walker Texas Ranger panel. And apparently, when you say that phrase that way, poring over something is spelled P-O-R-I-N-G. She pointed that out for me.
I was going to point it out, but it had already been posted. I saw it on the website.
Well, you can fix the website. You can log in and fix it, Evan. Jeez.
If I did that, then we wouldn't have this content.
Okay. Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, he's got a point.
Wow. This is really good content. Thanks, Evan.
And if we didn't have this, what would we possibly be talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can tell it's been a pretty busy news week here. If we're digging through old news articles and
huge. It's been enormous.
But to stay with me here, this is you got to start with the minor mistakes first. So it's a minor spelling infraction here. So that's infraction number 1. Let's jump to Facebook here. Okay, the third podcast we ever did was on the episode The Neighborhood. And each episode, we usually do a post at least on Facebook. Katie Robb took the time to go through and find this post that was about a year old to leave this message. What she got to say? What's Katie got to say?
She goes, so I'm not sure how I stumbled across this one while looking for a new podcast to listen to at work, but I keep thinking about this specific one and how y'all kept making fun of the doctor, but never realized that it was Chuck Norris's other son, Mike, and he's in a bunch of other episodes and is just as cheesy every time. Especially since one of y'all seems to be an IMDb detective or something.
Yeah, that's Evan. That's definitely Evan.
You know, that's an absolute oversight.
You apologizing for this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a massive oversight, particularly since Mike Norris was in the classic straight-to-VHS movie called Death Ring, which we were talking about Stallone's brother and how he'd often have movies with, across the front of the VHS, it would say Stallone and then Frank under it. In this case, Death Ring's cover says Norris, but it's Mike Norris. Drago, Billy Drago, who is super creepy. McQueen, but it's not Steve McQueen, it's Chad McQueen, his son. And Swayze, Don Swayze, Patrick Swayze's brother, who was in our first episode. So yes. I'm pretty sure we should watch Death Ring someday.
Most definitely.
But yeah, he's right in the middle, and you know what? I'd recognize that face anywhere. It's the Cheeseball Doctor.
But I told her, he's like, look, this is our third episode. We're just learning how to do this. You know,
also true.
I said, hopefully we're getting better. You know, hopefully we don't get worse as you're powering through these episodes, but feel free to let us know every time we mess up, because I'm sure there's a ton more. But yeah, she said the memory was still with me from like 10 years ago about how awkward the doctor seemed. It's like this podcast brought up some repressed memory that I never wanted to think about again.
Oh, no.
Sorry?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, rant over. Please understand that this drove me crazy enough to hunt down this Facebook page and scroll through over a year's worth of posts just to make this comment.
Wow.
Thank you, Katie. And I think Katie could probably attest to the massive amount of content that we put out there.
All right, well, we'll move on to this next item here. I saw this post on the Walker Texas Ranger page on Facebook. And Bob, you want to read that to us?
Yeah, Brianna Powers said, one of my favorite sayings is where Walker asked this boy where his belt was. And the boy said his sister died in a drive-by, so he put it in her casket so she could take it with her.
Yeah, and Cindy Atkinson said, Walker is such a heartfelt show.
It's true.
Now, you guys remember us talking about that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And 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 we talked about how awkward the voiceover for the kid was. I mean, it wasn't really about the content itself because it's terrible. It kind of seemed like this was kind of shoehorned into the episode, and it kind of caught you off guard. You're just like, wow.
Yeah. Well, you see, Brianna, her post got a sad face emoji, and that's showing more range of emotion than Walker was capable of at the time. So that might have been before Walker decided that they needed to cater to a young female crowd. And so he wasn't quite in touch with his emotional side yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
It's quite possible. So that's just setting this up here because we heard from, I guess I'd call her our super fan, Elena. And she said, hey, guys, in response to what you said in the podcast about Kickstart Kids, not only that it was a real organization during Walker times, but actual stories involving it were inserted into the plot of Walker. She said, remember the story about the kid whose sister died and he put the belt in her coffin? This is an actual story that appears in this book, Chuck Norris, The Secret Power Within, Zen Solutions to Real Problems. And she sent us the excerpt from the book.
After more than 35 years in the martial arts, competing and training thousands of young people...
Wait, hold on. Is Chuck Norris on this podcast?
Yeah, this is an audible right here.
Okay. All right. Continue, Chuck.
There is one story that is engraved in my memory. It was told to me by Alice McCleary, one of my instructors. One of her young students showed up for training class without his purple belt. Alice reminded him that part of his responsibility of a student was to have his gi and belt with him at all times. "Where is your belt?" she asked. The boy looked at the floor and said he didn't have it. "Where is it?" Alice repeated. "My baby sister died, and I put it in her coffin to take to heaven with her," the boy said. Alice had tears in her eyes as she told me the story. "That belt was probably his most important possession," she said. The boy had learned to give his best, a lesson he had probably learned from Alice, from martial arts, and from Zen, which teaches us when to accept things and how to make peace with the inevitable, such as serious illness or death.
Okay. So, guys, I think we're going to hell. I'm just going to say that.
I want to know whether or not this book came out before that episode, and if he just took it from the writers of the TV show and put it in his book.
Oh, no.
I just want our official proofreader, Elisa, to know that the proofreader missed a comma placement prior to the witch in that last sentence.
You know, after hearing that story from Elena, we might be going to hell. But, guys, I've got news for you. We aren't going to be there alone. Bob, do you want to take this next one?
Yeah, it looks like Chuck Norris posted on his Instagram or something. It said, "Memorial Day weekend is always bittersweet for me. I revel in the memories of my military days, but also think about all the men and women who have sacrificed their lives for our freedom. On this holiday, I want to share a special offer from my friends at Goldco PM."
Oh, no.
Adam, are they still calling you? once or twice a day? They have gold and silver freedom coins, and they can tell you all about them when you request my special American Retirement Report. See link in bio. Thank you to all those who have served our country. God bless. Buy into my pyramid scheme.
Yeah, so right there, right there, not only is he besmirching the honor of veterans over Memorial Day, using that platform to peddle his pyramid scheme of giving you metals that will not accrue much value over time for investments that will come up after the pandemic. But also, he says God bless at the end. So he's trying to give out some blessings over it, too.
Yeah, so I don't know about that, Chuck. I mean, you could have waited the next day. You didn't have to do that on Memorial Day, you know. Do it the next day, it would have been fine, but you might be going to hell for this post. I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
Did anybody on that comment on the fact that he was using Memorial Day to peddle a pyramid scheme?
No.
Or was everything positive?
Everything was positive, and that's why I included some comments here. It said, God bless my wonderful distant uncle, American flag. God bless you and your family. Those are all the responses. Nobody was like, you know, Chuck, You just shouldn't really have been pitching your... And he literally has a fist. It's a picture of him, fist in the air, and then him holding a gold coin in the other one.
Yeah, it's a silver freedom coin, I believe.
Oh, okay. But I don't have my glasses, okay? My bifocals.
Yeah, it's a freedom coin because they're freeing you from all of your assets and giving you something worthless.
Oh, God.
They say more money, more problems.
I don't know. But anyway, I'm just saying, this is all in good fun. Everything's all in good fun. But if we're going to hell for joking about that episode, Chuck Norris is definitely going to hell for using Memorial Day to make money.
I think this news segment has been one of our best.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
So moving on, we're sorry if you're going through Roundhouse Roulette withdrawal symptoms. We do have the back catalog if you want to dig into that. If you guys are looking for other podcasts to listen to, just make sure to only listen to these podcasts on our off weeks because, we're going to miss you if you just bail on us for these podcasts. I listened to this podcast that is amazing. It's called Music Makers and Soul Shakers with Steve Dawson. And he interviews musicians that are behind some of the best bands out there and goes deep with them, from a musician standpoint, but I think it's never too crazy that a non-musician would be able to understand it. But he did an interview with Bill Payne, who, if you don't know who Bill Payne is, he is one of the most talented piano players out there. Huge session guy, but he's mainly known for playing in the band Little Feat, who are really probably one of the most underrated bands of the 70s. So I was listening to the interview with him, and in this podcast, he mentioned that he played piano on All for Love, and he also played it.
Everything I Do?
Yes.
Damn, that's a banger.
And he talks about it.
Wait, who does that song, Adam?
Bryan Adams.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, okay.
But this is what we were talking about in our mini-sode where we went deep on these two songs. But it wasn't just the producer or Bryan Adams that was the thread. Bill Payne was on both of them as well. And apparently the one, All for One, they were changing the key, and they had him totally redo his piano part in a new key. Maybe because it didn't sit with all three of the singers right. I thought that was interesting. But if you're looking for a new podcast to check out and you're into music, highly recommend this. And we'll put a link to this episode on this week's page.
It was Sting that was difficult.
Yeah.
He was probably the one who made him change the key like 4 times.
Yeah, that's probably why you want to be Sting, because you're such a difficult person to be around.
Yeah. Yep.
He hit the high notes too, so.
Okay, he did put in that extra work.
He was actually playing bass, in the music video.
Right, which, as we learned, they had the keyboardist from the Faces in the music video when it was the keyboardist from Little Feat who played on the record.
We're so far down the rabbit hole here.
Well, moving on here, if you want to check out another podcast, I'm trying to give you guys some options here. Since we're giving you less podcasts, I'm giving you some more options here.
We have a huge back catalog.
Yeah, but
Go back and listen to ours again.
This is in the family here. Why is this in the family, Bob?
Yeah, this is from a podcast called Drumeo Gab, which Drumeo is like a website with a bunch of like instructional drum videos and stuff.
And we might add here that you and Evan are drummers.
It's true. This episode is actually 2 parts where they tell the story of a certain Jason Mills, brother of Judson Mills,
who plays Gage on Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah. So Judson's brother is a drummer, and he played in Stomp. And these 2 episodes go over his story and how he had some vertigo issues and eventually ended up finding out he had some crazy tumor in his brain and got it operated on and kind of had to work his way back from not being able to walk and see and all this other stuff. So it's a pretty inspirational story, I'd say.
Yeah, most definitely. I found out about it because we followed Judson Mills, and he had posted up about his brother, a heartfelt message about it and whatnot. And it was, really inspirational. So even if you're not a drummer, I'm not a drummer, give it a listen.
It shows. We know you're not a drummer. We know.
Okay. All right. But no, we'll put it up on this week's episode page for you guys to check out.
So, in case you are looking for something else for your weekly podcast consumption, be sure to check those out.
I don't think we should be steering away our fans, but that's just me.
Well, if you're hard pressed and you've listened to our episodes 3, 4, or maybe even 5 times, and you've already checked them for errors and sent those errors our way, at that point, maybe you can then check out these other podcasts.
That's fair.
We've got a lot to cover this week, so let's get on into it. If you're watching along at home and don't want any spoilers, hit that pause button and watch Season 3, Episode 4, Mustangs. And come on back to us. Oh, welcome back. Let's dig into this beast. This episode originally aired on October 15th, 1994. And it opens with some jarringly crazy digital music, which I had kind of forgotten.
Nailed it.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like the music from like a detective CD-ROM.
Yeah, I practiced it. I gotta do that again. Here it goes. There it is. Is how it ended. Anyway,
You really nailed it there. You really brought me back to not enjoying that music.
And yeah, so
Make it stop. Oof. So this is season 3. So we've got the music director from Dallas who's kind of just going avant-garde on this. So the theme song is very dramatic as well. And the music is basically like Adam with a couple of Epiphany IPAs in him and a Casio keyboard. And that's pretty much the music department. Amidst this music from like a Cheeseball Murder, She Wrote episode, we see the Dallas skyline and it's nighttime and someone keeps frantically calling CD's Bar and Grill and they keep asking for Alex and CD's like, yo, she's not here. And I guess this guy keeps calling back every 15 minutes asking for Alex Cahill, but no one thinks it's suspicious until Alex finally talks to the guy.
right.
Yeah, and it's funny when CD's like, are you the same guy that's been calling every 15 minutes?
Right.
So what do you think, CD?
Right. So when Alex comes in from the opera, and CD's asking Walker why he didn't take her to the opera, and Walker's all like, something about 2 guys fighting with swords and then stopping in the middle of it to break into song. It just doesn't appeal to me. Let's just say that they're definitely not catering to the young female crowd in this episode.
Yeah.
And maybe they learned their lesson.
Well, we noticed that in Swan Song, which is a couple seasons after this, when they're trying to cater to the audience, Walker takes her to the opera.
There it is.
Now, he bails out in the middle of it to go check out a cold case, but
that's what any guy would do in that situation.
and still he takes Alex along, and they almost get eaten by a cannibal, and it's a good time. You guys should check out that episode if you haven't yet.
Yeah.
It's a good one. So Alex comes in and CD goes over to her, and this is him just reading the lines. He said, "Some yahoo's been trying to call you."
Not Yahoo.
Correct. So she talks to this guy, and he apparently is a friend of an old friend of Alex's, and he has some information for her. Very cryptic, and he wants to meet her by some fountain. So she's like, okay, that was weird.
Right.
Walker's all like, what's that all about? And she's like, well, you want to come with? And he's like, sure, let's go look for this dude.
Friend of an old friend. I mean, we know what happens to old friends.
Yep. The guy gives his name, which is Hank Sweet, but he doesn't say what he looks like or what she should be looking for. So they show up at this fountain, which we've actually seen in another fight.
Was it Black Dragons? It was either the beginning of Black Dragons or Safe House.
I think it was the beginning of Safe House.
Yeah. And we've seen the same location used and the same thing happens.
Yeah, it's a fight in a fountain. It's pretty epic.
Yeah, it's a multi-tiered water fountain that's in the front of a skyrise building in downtown Dallas, I assume.
Anyways, they're like, man, do you see him? And Walker's all like, well, it'd be a lot easier if we knew what he looked like. And then they turn around and they're like 3 guys beating up some other guy, like 4 tiers up in the fountain. And Walker's like, that's probably the dude.
He's like, this is par for the course.
He's like incredibly, like totally flatline, like, oh, I'm going to go check this out.
Right.
Like that happens all the time.
And yeah, they essentially use this as an excuse to get both Walker and Alex completely soaked with water.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Walker kind of combats 2 of the guys off the old guy, and he's trying to hand like some documents to Alex, and he almost succeeds, but the bad guys grab the documents and some of them run off, and Walker kind of fends some of them off. And I'm thinking we're going to get like one of those classic Walker just last word things.
Right, but then the documents get stolen, and then he's about to tell Alex something, and that's when he gets shot.
And he does his last words. And what are his last words?
You gotta save the horses! And with that, he dies. So then they bring in the old friend, who's the connection between Hank Sweet, who just died, and Alex, and this is Thelma, who is a charismatic
battle axe.
Old battle axe. Yeah. And she is all about protecting the Mustangs and very little else. Mm-hmm. And she's brought into the morgue to identify the body. And then they decide to have a full-on conversation in the morgue right next to his dead body, which is a little odd. And finally, she's like, this place gives me the creeps. Let's get out of here. And I'm like, good move, guys. But I guess, come to find out, it sounds like Hank knows something really incriminating, but he didn't really want to bring Thelma into it and let her know what was going on. He wanted to go the legal route. But
go to Alex and bring the information to the assistant district attorney.
Exactly.
Which, as we learn, Thelma's more of a take charge kind of gal. And he was worried that she would do something crazy to protect these wild Mustangs because you know how those environmentalists are, right?
Boy, do I ever.
Yeah, can we talk about her brooch, too? That thing was sick.
She had an incredible brooch. She had an amazing Jeep. I forgot to mention, after they fight the people in the fountain, Alex and Walker go back to Alex's apartment to dry off.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was kind of leading up to. Yeah, they used it as a reason to get both Alex and Walker soaked. And they went back to Alex's apartment, and you're like, what is happening here? Because you're like, did she just take a shower? Or because she's kind of drying off.
She's in like a skimpy bathrobe, and Walker's still like in his wet black jeans, which I wouldn't want that sitting on my couch, but you know, what do I know?
If Chuck Norris was in those jeans, I'd let him sit on my couch.
Okay. Well, you know, Alex is trying to put the moves on him, and there's actually a point where he looks down at her legs and then shifts over like 6 inches on the couch away from her. And I kind of laughed because I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, Chuck Norris was uncomfortable. But then they play it up even more, meaning that like that actually was him acting, which is odd to see.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, oh, it's intentional. And Alex is all like, can I make you some tea? And Walker's like, well, I should get going. She's like, I could scramble up some eggs, make you something more substantial. And he's like, nope, I gotta go.
Yeah, he's like, I don't mix business with pleasure, lady. And then
I don't think it's that. He's got no game. Walker's got
no game at all. He even forgets his gun and almost walks out without it.
Well, I think that set up a pretty good line, though, right?
Yeah. She was like, you forgot your pistol, Walker.
Oh man! So again, this episode had not gotten the ratings yet, and one is to assume that this season was getting crushed by Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, in the young female category of demographics. Right. So, all right. So back to the morgue. They hear from Thelma, and they're like, "Okay, we got to look a little bit more into this Mustang thing. So let's go talk to the people at BLM, which, let's not be confused here, in this instance stands for the Bureau of Land Management." And Walker and Trevette talked to this guy named Chet Whitcomb, and they zoomed in on his name tag and all that stuff. And I was like, boy, this guy's going to be a major player. But spoiler alert, we never see him again. I thought he was going to be involved in all this stuff. None of it. Anyways, he just points to a bunch of maps, and they realize that Hank's property was right next to this enormous property owned by the Travis family, Travis Ranch, or Circle T Ranch. And they're like, okay, let's go check these guys out.
I don't know if it's the first guy that we see, but the guy with the heart of gold. What's his name?
Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch. Yeah. I think we meet Mitch right away, right?
Yeah.
And do you guys pick up on this guy? I had one thing just fly out at me the second I saw him. The wedding singer?
Yeah, he's in The Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Okay. All right. Walker's kind of grilling this guy, Mitch. And Walker's like, hey, hear about those Mustangs on your property here. And he's like, oh, yeah, they kind of do what they want, those wild horses, right?
Apparently, according to Chet Whitcomb of the Bureau of Land Management, 95% of the wild Mustangs left in Texas are on state-owned land, but 5% of them are on private land. And that 5% is basically a group of mares that run around with one stallion named Santana. And they call them the Santana Gang.
Oh, my gosh.
According to Mitch, they are quite a handful, particularly in the winter time when they're trying to feed their cattle on the ranch. Santana will move in and chase all the cattle away so that his mares can get all the food. He's a hard one to tame. He's a legend. Apparently, Walker had already heard of Santana.
Yeah, because he was like, "Oh, I've heard of Santana."
Yep.
It's kind of like when people do that with Walker in his own show. Santana gets the same respect from Walker.
Santana is the Walker Texas Ranger of horses, for sure.
Yeah.
Except he's got more moves with ladies.
Clearly.
So yeah, they learned from Mitch that the Santana bunch was a nuisance, but Mitch seems genuinely shocked to hear that Hank Sweet had been killed. So as they're leaving, Walker and Trevette are talking about it. Walker's like, he seemed to be genuinely surprised by that, but he was familiar with the Santana gang. And
yeah, and he's like, but I'll tell you what, though, while I was talking with him, I noticed somebody inside the house that was totally behind me at the time, and they were peeking in on the conversation from behind the curtains.
Someone was watching. And we actually see this behind the scenes. This is Mitch's brother, Ned. And Ned is clearly the bad brother here.
Right.
And it seems like Ned has had something to do with Hank's death, but can't quite get to the bottom of it.
Right. And he's watching this conversation happen, which, again, I don't think the house was in an eye shot of Walker to see like somebody moving curtains, right?
We've established he has eagle vision, so it's all good.
Well, if he doesn't have eyes in the back of his head, he has ESP with an eagle who is watching the house.
For sure. And Walker's all like, says to Trevette, he's like, boy, I just hope it's not a bunch of Renegade Meat Packers.
So what do we think it's going to be?
I'm like,
yeah,
please explain. Right. And Walker's like, well, it's a bunch of guys with machine guns, and they come in and they shoot all the horses and cut them up and ship them away.
Send them off to the dog food factory.
Yep, pretty much.
That's the one hashtag I had for this episode is Renegade Meat Packers.
Renegade Meat Packers. A phrase I never thought I'd hear in a Walker episode, but there you go.
I mean, I guess that would be the villain of this episode, right?
Yeah, that's what I put in as the villain for sure. It's something you just have to use that when you can. So just as they're leaving, a black Chevy SUV pulls up, and you know that it's the bad guys because come on, it's got the tinted windows and everything.
Yeah, it's a Chevy too.
Yeah, and this bad guy comes out, and in case you didn't know he was a bad guy, he's also dressed in like really dark clothes with like a black cowboy hat, and his name is Corbin, and he's clearly the super bad guy, and he's been in cahoots with Mitch's brother Ned. It's just bad news, man.
Yeah, and he's like, that ranger's been sniffing around, and but we got your boy, and we got to go up to his house and take care of some stuff up there because he might have some evidence up there. And Ned's like, hey, I don't want to hear this stuff. He's like, oh, okay, we'll keep your nose clean, Ned.
It's like, for what you're paying me, I'll be invisible.
Right.
Totally not true.
Yeah.
So as Walker and Trevette are talking through their hunch, Walker's like, oh, I'm just going to drop you off. I'm going to go check out Hank's house because, he probably has stuff kicking around. And Hank's got this dog and its owner's dead, which is really sad. And Walker decides to feed the dog just a T-bone from the fridge. So he's talking a lot to this dog. He goes in the fridge. He's like, well, I pull out this just random hunk of meat. I don't really see any sense in this going to waste. And the dog's like, yeah, okay, I'll take that. He walks over and he goes, that beats dog food, doesn't it? And then the weird voiceover comes in here. That be yeah.
What, Chuck Norris's voiceover?
I don't know if it's a voiceover or if it's just him talking to the dog, but he's like, that be yeah. And I think this is how Chuck Norris might talk to his dogs.
Well, this gave me a little Top Dog flashback.
I was thinking, so his conversation with this dog is the most genuine conversation we've had. So, maybe they caught a little bit of lightning in the bottle here, and they're like, let's try to replicate this a few years later with Top Dog. And you'll have to listen to our Top Dog podcast to see if it worked.
Spoiler alert, it didn't.
That be yeah.
That be yeah.
I'm just going to say this now, guys. This blows my mind, but the Top Dog episode of this podcast is our most listened to podcast.
Hashtag that be yeah.
Wow. I don't know what's up with that.
When Walker's walking around the house, though, and he's feeding the dog and he's looking for stuff, like, I expected him to find a ticking bomb.
I
Was that what
was
you guys were
expecting
thinking
that too.
too?
Yeah,
Like,
especially when the dog was there, like being like,
Yeah.
"Ruff, ruff." You're like, oh, the dog's going to save Walker from a bomb.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
No.
I was like waiting for that. And then he finds all these documents and then he hears a truck come. And
Right.
It's the bad guy.
Yeah, and Corbin had mentioned earlier that he was going to set the place on fire. So I was
Right,
like, well,
right.
maybe they'll set it on fire while Walker's in it.
Yeah.
But instead, Walker just steps on the front porch. The guys rumble to a halt in the SUV, and they're like, oh, that's the ranger from the fountain. Let's hightail it out of here. And a chase ensues.
This is my favorite part of the episode. You're like, oh, dude, are they going to attack Walker? No, they literally just see him and then just put it in reverse and gun it backwards in fast motion. And then you're like, oh, car chase. And the music is like ripping. I think there's some dive bombs on the guitar, all this stuff.
This car chase went on forever, though.
Oh,
It actually
did.
cut to
It
other
did.
scenes and then back to the car chase.
I did feel like that scene they added with Alex talking to her informant in the middle of the car chase took away from the impact of the car chase.
Well, I mean, the car chase seems kind of pointless because what's the end game there? Like, Walker's chasing around a car with like 4 dudes in it. They've all got guns. Like, what is the end goal here if you're chasing them off into the woods?
Their car gets wrecked and then they all get out and they throw the guns down for no reason and engage in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, put up your dukes.
Yeah, I guess we've seen it before, so never mind.
It's a working theory.
So yeah, as these trucks are just plowing through the grasslands, Alex sits down with one of her informants who's on the planning committee for the county, I guess. And she learns that the Circle T Ranch, owned by the Travis brothers, who are super wealthy, by the way, they stand to benefit quite a lot if these horses go away because they want to put in a housing development right where the horses are, but the presence of the horses means they can't put it in. And apparently, Hank was totally against that, and that's why they had Hank killed.
Yeah, he had evidence that would put them away.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, back at the car chase, the black Tahoe pulls in, and then all the guys run out and get behind the hood with their guns. And one guy, he pumps the brakes. He's like, wait, we're going to shoot a ranger? Why the hell are we doing this? And this other guy's like, well, it's either that or we go to jail. And it's like, at this point, no one can prove anything. So really, you're just running away from him.
We were just delivering his mail.
I know. And the other guy's like, I've been to jail before. I don't want to go back. So let's kill this guy.
Sound logic.
That logic comes back later, too.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So there's these like 3 guys in cowboy hats behind their car waiting for Walker to pull up in hot pursuit. And Walker pulls up and they start shooting at the front of the Dodge. They actually show bullets hitting the front.
They have a clear shot at the windshield, but they just shoot the grill.
Because that'll make the most sparks.
Yeah.
And then Walker, he just kind of casually gets out, not even like trying to protect himself, fires a few shots and they all scatter.
Right.
Did you hear the sound of his gun, though? It's like a freaking cannon.
In this whole next segment here, I was like, oh, we really are watching like a Western. Like everything happening in this episode from here on out is like, oh, just Western pastiche.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, he chases these guys through the creek, and one guy turns around to, level his gun at Walker, and Walker returns fire and grazes the guy, and the guy falls over, and Walker's trying to interrogate him. And again,
right before he's able to spill his guts to Walker,
he gets shot again.
He gets shot by his own guy.
Yeah. So this happens twice when Walker's trying to get information from people. They get that second bullet. So
yeah, the guy could have killed Walker, right? Like whatever.
True. Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe he just missed.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's possible.
So, anyways, he takes a second shot and actually hits Walker. We're like, oh no, he's been shot. He goes tumbling down the hill.
Right. And they all just take off instead of like making sure he's dead.
They do take the effort of shooting out all of his tires and removing the radio from his truck.
Yeah. The bad guy Corbin's like, ha, if he's not dead, he's going to be dying out here with the buzzards tonight.
Yeah. Clearly, he has not read the book on Walker. So we come back from commercial break, and Walker gets to his feet, and he's rubbing his chest where he was shot, and he looks down, and we see a close-up of his ranger badge, and it was his ranger badge that stopped the bullet.
Saved by the badge.
Wow, I've never seen that before. Incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
That was amazing.
So after Walker comes to and he realizes he's been saved by his badge, checks out his sick ride and realizes he's alone in the wilderness. And instead of freaking out, he just says, it's going to be a long walk back.
Ain't no thing.
Yeah.
Ain't no thing.
And while he starts his walk back, he has a little brief run-in with Santana.
And we're talking about Carlos Santana. Who are we talking about again? I forget.
This is not the guitar legend Carlos Santana. This is instead a
horse legend.
A horse legend, just as legendary as Carlos Santana.
Right.
Santana, the Mustang, is a truly majestic beast who basically looks over his herd of mares. And Walker mutters to himself, one would think, but instead he's communicating to the horse as well. And he says, well, you must be Santana. Hope you don't mind if I take one of your ladies to ride back down into town.
So he goes back to his truck and he kind of opens up the passenger side door. And right there, where we didn't see it before, was just a perfectly round lasso.
Just like any Texan would have some gloves in the glove box, which makes sense. And then a lasso hanging behind the passenger seat. Anyone from Texas, just let us know if that's common practice.
Yeah. Is that your...
I've got one of those in my Forester.
Oh, okay, you do.
Just in case, guys. Come on.
I used to keep a grappling hook in my car. I once used it to pull my wife's car out of a snowbank.
Okay. What are you looking for, Evan? Accolades here?
Have you ever used a grappling hook?
No, but I did gift one to my father-in-law. He's really into Batman. One Christmas, I was like, I'm just going to get him a real freaking grappling hook. I also will add that you are a huge fan of Santana. You may still be.
For sure. Yeah.
Not the horse, but the musical artist.
I think Santana's best up. I mean, most people would say Santana stopped being good after the second album. I think that's just when he started getting good. I'm all about that early 70s to mid 80s Santana. He turned the cheese volume level up to like 40. So
unpopular opinion, but I appreciate it.
We're going to put Evan's top 5 Santana records on this podcast page.
This is Santana, the guitarist, not the horse.
Yeah.
The horse cannot play guitar.
No man can ride Santana, but you can listen to Santana's 5 best albums. All right, so Walker's all like, okay, I'm just going to lasso one of your mares and take her down into town because I need to get out of here.
Instead of Walker putting a lasso over one of the mares, Walker snares Santana.
When he has certainly caught lightning in a bottle.
Indeed.
What kind of hijinks did they put Kinney through?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking of him the whole time.
Yeah, so for listeners out there, Kenny Gibson is Walker's stunt double, and this might have been him, but they might also use somebody who knew horses pretty well. But
I don't know. For what we've heard about Kenny, he's basically the most badass guy ever.
yes. Yeah.
They probably brought in a wild Mustang and had Kinney break it. Just well, it was definitely Kinney that was being drug around on the ground by a rope.
Yeah.
This montage of quote unquote Walker breaking Santana is unbelievable.
Again, in the middle of it, there's a break for Alex. And this is her basically telling Trevette what she found out, which was that, there was going to be a huge development that was put on hold because of the horses. It's all on the Circle T ranch, and they're bad news, and they could stand to make millions if they are able to get rid of these horses. So Trevette, he's like, okay, I'm going to head down down to the ranch and question them a bit further. And he gets intercepted by Thelma, and she knows what's going on too, and she's going to run down to the ranch. Trevette's like, man, if I don't go with her, she's going to go herself. And as Bob said, she's quite the battle axe. She's going to go out there and bust some skulls. So Trevette better tag along to make sure it's all by the book. Yeah, he's riding shotgun, and I don't think either one of them is wearing a seatbelt. So
there was like a Willys Jeep or something. I don't know what that was.
It was
Like
sick,
an old school Jeep. It definitely didn't have seatbelts.
Whenever she slammed on the brakes, the tires just stopped. Yeah.
That thing was a box. It was awesome.
That was awesome.
Cut back to Walker, and
still working on Santana.
Yeah, he's still working on Santana getting drug around behind a horse, and he thinks back to his teachings from Uncle Ray. And Uncle Ray's got some wise words. He's all like, the white men try to conquer the horse. The Indians, they become one with the horse. And instead of pointing the horse in a certain direction, they move with the horse. And so Walker tries to take a different tack, and he's like, okay, well, Santana, I'm just trying to protect myself, and you and I are very similar. We're both trying to protect ourselves and our ladies. After a little bit more effort, Walker's able to tame and eventually ride Santana, and they ride off into the sunset to bring the mares to a safe place and to get Walker into safety so that he can contact the authorities.
He made that pretty elaborate. What do you call the horse thing? The horse mask or whatever?
Yeah, he made a bridle.
A bridle, okay, yeah. Out of the rope that he brought. It was pretty elaborate. I was impressed.
Yeah, that was some real impressive rope craft. Back at the Circle T Ranch, the bad guys they're prepping for the slaughter, and they're not really leaving much to our imagination here. There's a dude next to like the meat packing truck, and he's got this giant apron on and a chainsaw.
Like rubber, yeah.
The rubber gloves, yeah. It looks like Einstein's helper, and Igor gets into the passenger side seat, and they're rolling out. And I thought it was interesting that they're trying to keep this on the DL, and the Travis brothers, they don't really want it known that they're responsible for all this slaughtering. And yet the 2 pickup trucks with the 50 caliber machine guns strapped to the back of them going out there to mow down horses. Both of those trucks had the Circle T Ranch logo on them.
Oh, no. Yeah, and it's like you've got this gun truck driving in the front, and then immediately like a refrigerated box truck for them to put the cut up horses into, driving right behind it.
In broad daylight, of course.
So subtle. So subtle.
And Mitch is all like, boy, I really don't like this. And his brother's like, yeah, no, it's all good. So, they peel off, and they're on a mission. That mission is to kill some horses, I guess. Pretty messed up. They roll out, and I guess Trevette and Thelma just missed them. That's kind of how I interpret it. So they show up, and Trevette tries to shake down Ned Travis. They're like, well, man, we're just looking for my partner Walker. He hasn't been seen, and you were probably the last people to see him. And they're like, no, I haven't seen him. I ain't seen nothing. So they're like, well, you better be telling the truth, or else we're going to bring down the law on you, man. And he's all like, no, it's all good. And so they drive off, and this is when the brothers really get into a little bit of a scuffle here. When Ned lets it slip to his good brother Mitch that Corbin said that he shot Walker earlier on that day. And Mitch is like, wait, did you have Tom Sweet killed too? And he's like, he's just collateral damage. And now I got to go kill Trevette and Thelma.
Things are getting way out of hand.
Right. And Mitch is like, why don't we just stop?
Yeah.
And Ned's like, nope. If they're on our trail, the logic is not to slow down and stop and take things careful. We should just kind of roll with it and make it even worse.
Yeah, double down.
Right.
It makes sense.
So just as Corbin and his crew were doubling down and they didn't want to go to jail, so they tried to kill Walker, Ned is doubling down and saying, well, I could either stop and probably never be found out because there's not enough evidence, or I could just keep on going and just kill everybody. And Ned decides to go ahead and just try to kill everyone. Yeah, I believe the quote from Ned is, I go all the way, or I go to prison.
He's playing a pretty dangerous game.
Oh, for sure. Meanwhile, Walker's riding Santana. And, keep in mind, even though Walker whipped up the bridle and everything, he's got no saddle or anything. So he's just like super hardcore here. And he's like, all right, Santana, we're going to get your ladies down into this river, and they'll never be found down in this gully. And now that they're down there, let's go hunting. And so they sneak up on some goons with guns, and Walker gets them to drop their guns and ride off into the sunset, never be seen again.
That was kind of like the bargain basement crew. He was easily able to get them. But then I think he's like, all right, now for the real bad guys.
So, yeah, now they go after the big guns, and Walker just rides Santana out into this grass field after these two pickup trucks with machine guns strapped to the back of them.
Right.
And
real quick, do you think those machine guns can only go like front facing? You don't think you could turn them around?
let's say that's the case, Bob, because there's no reason why he was not shot off that horse. Like immediately.
The horse and Walker just get mowed down.
Right.
And that's the end of the series. Yeah, that's how it ends.
Right. Yeah, so Walker goes out into this wide open field after this truck with a machine gun mounted at the top of it. Walker is riding the king of the Mustang horses, comes up behind him. There are three goons in the back of this flatbed truck. They have ample time to shoot Walker.
Yeah, and Corbin's like, shoot them, you idiots. And they can't get their gun ready in time. And from the back of a horse, in this case, Santana, the king of wild horses, Walker shoots the back of this pickup truck, which then explodes, sending the two guys in the bed of the truck flying. And then it, of course, hits the one bump in the middle of the field and explodes further as it flips onto its. Yeah.
Hits the bump and then jumps and then it like explodes in midair and then crashes. It's really just...
It's incredible.
And that's a super shot, is it not?
It's definitely a super shot.
That is a super shot, and I'm counting it as two explosions because, yeah.
Right. I'm with you on that one. It earned those two explosions.
For sure.
It was amazing.
What comes up next is pretty good. We do have a vehicular transference.
I know. Yeah. Corbin also has a gun in the back of the truck, yet no one shoots Walker as he slowly gains on this pickup truck and then jumps from Santana's back into the bed of the pickup truck to take out these couple goons. So he throws one guy off the truck, and then Corbin comes after him, and the two of them get locked into a death grip that they roll off the back of the truck. The tailgate flips down. They roll off the tailgate, and they teleport. So they roll off the back of this truck, and instead of landing in a field, they land like next to a stream in the woods.
Yeah.
And this is when Corbin's hat flies off, and we realize that he's rocking a serious bald patch here. And he is dispatched pretty quickly by Walker here.
Oh, yeah.
And Trevette and Thelma, they roll up in Thelma's Jeep, and they do a little bit of cleanup. So, they meet up with Walker in the woods, and Walker's like, oh, all the horses are safe. Don't worry, Thelma. And they're like, man, Walker, how'd you get down from here? He's like, oh, I rode Santana. And immediately, immediately upon hearing this, Thelma goes,
no man rides Santana.
And he didn't even give them enough time to even register what he had said.
Yeah, that might be one of the best lines in all of Walker.
And they're like, well, where's Santana now? And Walker's all like, I don't know. He disappeared into the ether, and he's a mythical beast, so we may never see him again.
And while they're doing this like kind of pointless talking, we see the bad brother is still hanging out there, and he's eyeing them up in the sight of his gun. And we're like, oh no, this could be the last episode of Walker Takes His Ranger if he pulls that trigger.
For sure.
Santana for the save. So Santana comes up and startles him. He falls over, rolls down a hill into the custody of Walker, Trevette, and Thelma.
Yeah, Santana gets the assist on that one for sure.
Yeah. But, if you love something, sometimes
you got to set it free.
Exactly.
So there comes the time when Walker has to take the bridle off of Santana, and he says to them, I've known 7 great horses in my life, and Santana was 6 of them. So, Walker sets him free, and the horses, they run majestically. And I just think that it's just really poetic to see all those horses running free. It's really nice. Anyway, so he sets Santana free, and, then we get sort of a slow fade on Walker's sad face as he's given up the greatest horse of all. Well, that about sums up this episode. We'd like to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen, who's been drawing the amazing Walkerstrations on our social media. Be sure to check out his other art on Instagram at @ImaginationRunAmok. When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate Mustangs on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse Roulette episode ranking, complete results of which are available and sortable on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't go away.
Left for dead in the Texas wilderness. Ranger Evan slowly comes to. Look up, Ranger Evan, to see what's coming.
Oh, hey there. You must be Santana, legendary king of the free-roaming Mustang horses. They say no man rides Santana, but if I don't try, I'll be sleeping out here with the buzzards tonight. What say you, Santana? Are you ready to change your evil ways?
And faster than CD could proposition a black magic woman, Ranger Evan proceeds into a horse-breaking montage with all the love of the universe, courting Santana every step of the way. Now, while he's doing that, it is my duty to let you know that we here at Roundhouse Roulette have pledged to deliver the light of Walker, Texas Ranger, to the world. If you'd like to join us in that mission, please share the pod with a friend, or leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts. It truly helps other Walkerites find the cast. If you'd like to further support the cast, we've recently added some smooth new merch at Roundhouse Roulette. Or you can join the fun on our Patreon page. Most importantly, though, we thank you for listening.
Easy does it, boy. I think we've now got a mutual understanding. Everything's coming our way. We're going home just in time to see the sun.
And just like that, in the span of one advertisement, Ranger Evan broke Santana and rode off into the sunset. Almost supernaturally, if you ask me. Well, I reckon we best do the same. Let's get back to the show.
Oh, yeah, como va? Welcome back. What did you think of this episode, guys?
Maybe it's just been a while since we had a early episode or super shot, vehicular transference. Guys, just checked off quite a few boxes for me. Okay? Well, at times, the story got a little slow, and at one point, I'm like wondering if there's ever going to be a fight. Yeah, the music was over the top. The sound effects were on point. The montage with Kenny taming a horse. That was all great. So I'm feeling pretty good about this one, guy, though. I'm giving this one a 7. Going up there.
Okay.
Wow, that's high praise for a Bob rating right there.
It is. Yep. It is, yeah.
I agree with you on all fronts. There definitely were some points where I was like, there's a lot of sort of dead time. On the other hand, though, I kind of can forgive that because the bad guy's logic was so poor. Well, they don't know any of us did anything, but let's kill them.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
None of the bad guys really put up a fight either. I guess that was one of the things I was kind of disappointed in, but...
Yeah, he did dispatch them, and there was 0 roundhouse kicks in this episode.
Yeah.
That said, there were 2 fights, 2 explosions, and 2 epic vehicle chases, including a horse chase with vehicular transference. So this one definitely checks off a ton of the boxes, and it shows Walker doing something that has been deemed impossible, which is a classic hallmark of Walker. I think this is definitely in the sort of quintessential episodes to watch. I definitely put this one very high up there. I guess I'll give it an 8. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah. I will say when it was over, I was like, I really enjoyed this one. And since it's early, we have Chuck Norris in this episode more than he usually is. So we get a lot of him or his stunt double, but either way, it's awesome. And the only thing really missing from it were roundhouse kicks, which is the name of our podcast. So we can't really go super high on that. So I'd highly recommend people watch this one. So I was going to say 7, but after going through this, I'm going to mirror you, Evan. I'm going to go 8. This was a really good episode of Walker, and I think the layperson would enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Also, let's not forget that Walker had his life saved by his badge.
Yeah.
How many more times do you think that'll happen in Walker?
Probably a half dozen at least. I'm surprised it's taken this long to get to the first one.
I know. All right. Well, that gives this episode a roundhouse rating of 7.66666 boots to the face. Well, I think that this episode would have been even more exciting if in 1990s Carlos Santana was guarding a herd of Mustang convertibles in the Texas hills. But please let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. When we come back, we'll spin the roundhouse roulette wheel and select our next episode. And we're back. Bob, you ready to spin that thing?
Let's do this. Tribe.
Oh,
no. Season 6, episode 13, Tribe.
The chief of the Cherokee Nation is suspected of murder when the archaeologist who spurned his advances is found dead. Oh,
I mean, I can tell right now what actually happened. Like, he was trying to woo her. She maybe was kind of interested, but didn't want it to be a conflict of interest. She discovered some artifacts on some sort of development site, but they didn't want her to share those findings, the developers, so they killed her instead. That's 110% what's going to happen.
That checks out.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
We hope you join us next time when we share our reactions to Season 6, Episode 13, Tribe. Share your opinions with us on Facebook and on Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at Roundhouse Pod. And rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your fine podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next time,
may the eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.